Sisters and brothers, ladies and gentlemen, friends, neighbors, comrades, all citizens of the world, wherever you're going, wherever you've been, and wherever you're at, we welcome you to the Live from the Heartland show here on YouTube. New episodes air every Friday at 9 a.m. Central Time with individual interviews posted throughout the following week. I'm your host, Michael James, encouraging you to take the chain from the brain, to get back in the people's game, because it's time to move from the lower level to the higher, from the shallower to the deeper, from the one-sided to the many, and from the abstract to the concrete. So without further ado, let's get it on. Hello, sisters and brothers, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Michael James, and I'm thanking you for tuning in to another edition of the Live from the Heartland show. This week is for the week of July 27th in the year 2024, and we are recording it on Wednesday, July 24th. Our guests today are three people whose opinions I trust. There's a lot to talk about. I'm sure all of you know that there's a lot going on in the world, that some things we're happy about, some we're not so happy. But my guests today will be Mike Klonsky, Katy Hogan, and Thom Clark. Before I bring them on, I'd like to share a few things, good things. First of all, Kamala Harris looks good. We have a new candidate. There's a lot of enthusiasm, and we'll talk a lot about that with our guests. This past week, I went over to Susan Roman Gallery, and they have an exhibit up called Go Forth and Set the World on Fire. It includes an almost life-size photograph of me and Warren Lemming and Pat Sturgis, one of the Haven brothers, all trying to tip over a paddy wagon during the Democratic convention back in 1968. We never got it over, but we've received a lot of notoriety. It's a nice exhibit, and I do have one photograph of young people at Loyola Park pledging allegiance to the flag. There are also a number of other pieces of art on the walls. Right next to the Roman Susan Gallery, which is on Loyola, just on the west side of the tracks, is Archie's Cafe. And unfortunately, Loyola is the new owner of that building. They're kicking everybody out. They could have played it much more graciously for their ongoing reputation. But Archie's has been a great place, probably the closest thing to the Heartland Cafe, where we come out of. And I talked to Roberta when I was over there, and she's open on Wednesday through Saturday, and in August they'll close. That's too bad, but it's been a great experience whenever we go there. Out in Oakland, California, former head of the Black Panther Party, Elaine Brown, is involved with a new housing project that has a bakery, has an entertainment part, it has plenty of housing rooms, it has a grocery store. It's a good thing to see the Panthers carrying on in that way. And I have a little bit of information. Paul Lauder, who is an old pal from SDS, Students for Democratic Society, has a letter in the New York Times today, and I'll read it to you because it's very brief. It says, "To the editor, I wish I could be a fly on the wall to hear President Biden telling Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, as the president must, quote, 'Look it, Bibi. I stood down. Now it's your turn.' Paul Lauder, Leona, New Jersey." And one more good thing, charges were dropped against the Northwestern University educators involved in pro-Palestinian encampment. I also just came upon the news that the old site of the Heartland Cafe, which you can see a painting of in my background, is going to be the site of a board game cafe. The woman has signed a 10-year lease. They'll have food and drink. You can bring your own alcohol. It doesn't take away from the loss of the Heartland Cafe and the kind of ugliness of the building, but we're glad there's going to be something on that corner. And maybe we'll talk about that a little bit. And on a sad note, 2 deaths to report. John Mayall, influential British blues pioneer, has died at 90. And Bernice Johnson Reagon, and that's Reagon, who was part of the SNCC Freedom Singers, that's the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, as well as Sweet Honey and the Rock, has passed. And I remember when the Freedom Singers came to Lake Forest College, probably 1963, and I was given the task of driving them back to Hyde Park. and I took the Freedom Singers, including Bernice Johnson Reagan, to the home of Sylvia Fisher, who was a longtime educator and civil rights activist. And I remember meeting James Foreman. I remember Willie Peacock of SNCC complaining that he couldn't get back to Mississippi on $25. It was quite an experience for a young guy who looked to SNCC and got to meet the people in the actual flesh. Okay, with all that said, we're going to hear a little bit of Bernice Reagan Johnson singing, and we'll be right back with our three guests today, Thom Clark, Katy Hogan, and Mike Klonsky. Take it away, Engineer Hal. We'll be right back, everybody.
There's a new day coming, everything gonna be turning over. Everything gonna be turning over. Where you gonna be standing when it comes? There's a new day coming, everything gonna be turning over. Everything gonna be turning over. Where you gonna be standing when it comes? For far too many years I've been marching, singing, and talking, doing things I thought would make me free. While people halfway around the world, they've been fighting and dying and bleeding.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to Live from the Heartland for the week of July 27th. We are recording it on the 24th. I have three people whose opinions and insight I treasure. That will be Thom Clark, Mike Klonsky, and Katy Hogan. I've asked them to join us today because there's a lot to talk about. Kamala Harris will be the Democratic nominee, almost for certain. And we're pretty happy about that. And I'd like to ask the three of you where you were at 12:46 Central Daylight Time when the word came down, and what were your first thoughts? Very briefly, I was on my front porch selling my photographs at my outdoor gallery, and I got it first from The Guardian, followed shortly after by the New York Times and the Washington Post, but The Guardian was the first. And I was elated. How about you, Thom?
I was on my front porch on my phone, and my first notice 5 or 10 minutes before the U.S. papers was the BBC. And I actually grabbed that screenshot and posted it because I hadn't heard it from anywhere else, and no one else was breaking it at that moment. So, and I was ecstatic.
How about you, Klonsky?
I don't know. I got a phone call from my daughter saying, "Hey, did you hear the news?" But to me, I wasn't surprised at all. I knew it was going to come down by the end of the weekend. So, yeah. I had been following it close enough to know that. Yeah.
How about you, Katy Hogan?
I want to know how he knew it was going to come down by the end of the weekend, but I'll tell you where I heard it was my sister Colette texted me. I was in a meeting over at the 49th Ward organizing what's coming up. And I looked at my phone and I said to the three other people in the meeting, Biden dropped out. So that was the end of the meeting for a few minutes. Everybody was. And I had gotten a hint the day before when I was canvassing in Milwaukee with one of the connected folks in Jan's office, Jan Schakowsky, our congresswoman. She said, I think there'll be an announcement tomorrow. So how did you know ahead of time, Mike?
I just assumed it was going to happen. I mean, I've been assuming it's going to happen since the day after he gave that the debate. He was on the debate. I assumed it would happen. I was rooting for it. Everybody seemed to saying, well, he says he wants to run. We're with him. But then Nancy Pelosi, who turns out to be quite a powerful elder statesman type, she was clearly at work, as were a number of other people. It seemed like it was a grateful thing. I mean, people seem to be pretty happy, even if they're like bending over backwards to compliment the current president. Mike.
Yeah, well, the Saturday previous, let me backtrack a second. My family and I, Susan and I, were down in Rehoboth Beach on vacation.
Close to
And
power.
so that's where the power was. And the Saturday before, Chuck Schumer,
Yeah, we know him.
you know who Chuck Schumer is. Schumer went down to Rehoboth and kind of broke the news to Biden and the family. You know, a lot of people, I don't want to bust anybody's bubbles. A lot of people are saying, well, it was really great. Biden put the needs of the country and the party ahead of his own interests. But actually, you know, there is a ruling class in this country. And I think a big section of them decided it was time for Biden to go. And Schumer had met previously with Pelosi and the Clintons and the Obamas and a lot of the donors who were calling in saying they're not going to put a penny more into Biden's losing campaign. And so they sent Schumer down to Rehoboth Beach. And it reminded me of the scene from The Godfather where the big guys, you know, kind of told Biden it was we could do it the hard way or the easy way. And so then Biden had decided, he said he needed a week. And so they gave him a week and he took the week. And then on Sunday, I guess it was, he made the announcement.
The reason I knew is because David Brooks on Friday said it'll be 2 or 3 days. And that's part of the ruling class elite, right? Former Republican columnist. So I took that as the insider view and sort of went with it.
You know, David Brooks can make me crazy, but he also can be very insightful. And Mike, you mentioned the ruling class. And I'm just wondering about what do you think about these 3 members of the ruling class and what they're thinking about this? Elon Musk, David Sachs, and Peter Thiel. Thiel is the PayPal guy. I'm not sure what Sachs is, but they're all clearly in the orange-haired guy's pocket. They probably were pushing for this guy Vance, who changed his name, whose parents in today's money made $186,000 a year. It's not quite the close to the ground Southern white dude that they're claiming. Anyhow, I'm just wondering about
the fit running mate for Trump because he can lie just as well.
Well, that's a good one. Where do you guys think about the?
I thought Hulk Hogan would have been a better vice president to run with Trump. You know,
or Stormy Daniels. You know.
Yeah.
This is called the Heartland Comedy Hour now. Okay.
Why not? Why not? Go ahead, Katie.
I thought it was pretty excellent timing on Biden's part to wait until the convention was over and all the hoopla boopla over a little, narcissistic misogynist joining the team of the nice narcissistic misogynist racist. But I thought it was excellent timing for a lot of reasons. And for those of us who were canvassing, I can talk about the experiences we had canvassing while the Republican convention was in town in Milwaukee. And it was one of the more interesting canvasses I've ever taken part in, which is saying a lot.
Well, Katie, let's follow up on that.
People could not stop talking.
Let's follow up on that because, you're involved with Operation Swing State. I'm not sure the proper name, but why don't you tell us about the work you were doing before the announcement and where you see it going now?
Well, Operation Swing State is a collaboration on the part of a whole bunch of Dems in Chicago, a bunch of other activist people put together, mostly organizing bunch. She's got these interns. She's got like about 25 young people, including a couple of Peyton high schoolers and mostly college students who finally, thank God, are, making up the lion's share of the start of these canvasses. And now she's got them trained as canvas captains. So Operation Swing State is the current version of Chicagoans go to the nearest swing state. And so those are Wisconsin and Michigan. we go every week. There are multiple trips now every week, and we've got good relations with the Wis Dems and the Michigan Dems, and they, of course, welcome all the help they can get, and they put us to work very well. This has been under Operation Swing State's banner. It's sometime in June they started. So I had to give notice to my wonderful summer camp job at Gethsemane to go to work for them as I am now, which is part-time, which is something you can laugh at. No one ever works on a campaign part-time.
No, we know you.
The fact that we've started early and
I say we know you'll be full-time.
I'm sorry, Michael. It's just the way it happens. I know. Okay, so Operations SwingState.com is how people get to Mobilize platform, which is a really simple, straight-ahead platform, and they continue to tell you updates, give you more updates after you've signed up at least once. And what else did you ask me, Michael? Other than
I don't remember, but let me switch.
Let me back up and respond to an earlier question, Michael, which is Elon Musk and Sachs and Steel. Elon Musk is only in the news because he's the richest man in the world, supposedly, and his company lost their profits were down 40% this past year. So once again, a really effective business person who thinks he has something to say about how to run the government.
Mike, you had your hand up there.
Well, he's given $46 million a month to Trump's campaign, right?
Well, he backed off of that.
Oh, he did. Anyway, but that's not the point I was going to make. I really have a question for you guys. Everybody's kind of glad that Kamala Harris is the new candidate. That's a pretty low bar. I mean, I think the Democrats now have at least some hope because at least they have a candidate who can, get through a press conference or speak at a rally, able to campaign, which we didn't have, up until now. But my question for you guys is: aren't you troubled at all by the fact that it's the big boys who made the decision about what does that say about the Democratic National Convention? Is that just what is that for then? If the decisions have already been made and the delegates got a phone call and switched their votes overnight?
Katy.
I've been a delegate twice to Democratic conventions. And I've also worked in politics as long as you have, probably longer on the electoral side, Mike Klonsky. Uh-huh. So I am never surprised at the detritus that comes to us from the big boys, as you say. But at the same token, I'm a ground level field person. And what I know is this election must be a full rejection of the MAGA mindset. So I don't look at the dirty details at this point. I'm the ground vermin. And for people who call on and say Kamala has, a prosecutor's past, well, yeah, because she was a prosecutor and she was an attorney general and all that stuff. And no, it doesn't bother me because, as you said, there is a ruling class right now. And what we're fighting for is that the ruling class not be made up of people like Elon Musk, Trump, et cetera, until we can, get a few more things out of this Democratic win. Where we have to help them win. We have to help them win. And I think Kamala is good for a number of reasons, not just that she can walk down the stairs of a plane without falling, and much less up the stairs without falling 3 times. She's younger, and she's going to pick a younger running mate. And this is what a lot of people in my ear have been, wailing about for years, that we've got all these old people. And I'm like, here, take my job, do it. I want young people to take take the torch or pass the torch to them. So Kamala is going to be great to watch when she wipes the floor with Trump. I'm looking forward to that so much. But I have no problem. I have no problem, campaigning for.
You have no problem with how the sausage is made, right?
I know how the sausage is made. That's the thing. I try and let young people know, please don't let your heart be broken by politics. They're dirty. And every single time I work a campaign, there is a point at which I say blank politics over and over from a desk full of papers, full of names that I'm calling, that I'm arranging. And the system still disappoints me, but the volunteers do not.
And one big way it disappoints me is we're excited about $100 million raised in 3 days. Why should it cost $100 million to run for office in this country? I mean, we lost that when Barack ran the first $1 billion campaign, and God bless him for figuring out how to raise that money. But there were trade-offs for raising that kind of money. And that's the problem with money in politics. And of course, SCOTUS has made it, free play, Wild West again, with corporations, Elon Musk being able to throw all the money they want at something like this. Of course, one reason JB, our governor, is even on the list of potential vice presidential things is he can self-finance the campaign if they need it. So it's, the sausage making is terrible, but that's part of the messiness of democracy. I think people were scared of an open convention. Personally, I thought that would get people even more excited. I don't know that we wanted to go through the process of challengers to Kamala or, figure out who's coming up next. She's vetted. We know about her. Let's get excited and get her in office instead of the other team. I really see this whole election as electing a team to, trying to continue some forward movement instead of backing up.
On the ruling class, I'm never big on the ordinary people being in sync with the ruling class. But I do think that there was really a very, very strong base of people who wanted a change, wanted another candidate, and probably wanted Kamala. I didn't ever see a different choice. And I think that I don't think Chuy Garcia is part of the ruling class, but I do think that he told me that he liked Kamala, and I had said I was for Bashir, and he seemed to agree. But I think there was an awful lot of people in the Congress, probably in the Senate. They probably are connected to the ruling class, but they wanted a change too.
Where's the first public speech she made? Milwaukee. The place that Hillary never made it to during her campaign. So in the speech, by the way, you got to read it. It's she did a phenomenal job, and she used the prosecutor background to her advantage. I know who Donald Trump is. I've prosecuted predators. I've prosecuted fraudsters. It was a perfect line. It was a wonderful line.
I want to get back to what Katy raised. And I have a world of respect for Katy and the work that she's done as an organizer over the years. And she's probably right. She probably precedes me in terms of that, which not many people I talk to these days do.
Well, you were in the movement. You weren't doing electoral. You were doing movement.
Well, in 68, we were doing movement, yes, but we also got blamed, as you recall, for Humphrey's defeat.
But I blame the police for starting it, unless you think Abby Hoffman started it by saying he was going to put LSD in the water.
Well, here my thing was and is now to a large degree. I couldn't morally support a war candidate or the war party at that time, and to support a guy like Humphrey, who was right in the mix in terms of bombing the Vietnamese to rubble and killing 1 million people. It just even though he was running against right-wing Nixon, I couldn't bring myself to, and I think thousands of other young people who were in the streets with us, Michael, in Chicago that summer, I don't think they could have brought themselves to support the War Party or Humphrey. And today, a lot of these young people who've been participating in encampments and some of the people who were arrested, I don't know if you heard, but there was big protest at the Capitol yesterday. Hundreds of people were arrested. Well, it wasn't just against Netanyahu. It was they were demanding that they were trying to stop Netanyahu from speaking at the in front of Congress, and a lot of the politicians, Democrats and Republicans, are boycotting Netanyahu's speech. The problem I got now is that once again, it seems like history repeating itself in some kind of crazy way. You got both parties supporting this genocide in Gaza, including Biden and including Kamala Harris. And it makes it very difficult for a lot of young people and a lot of people, a lot of Arab Americans and people like that to jump right in and back Harris. Even though I think I'm glad Harris certainly is a great alternative to Trump, but so to get back to what Katy was saying about organizing, and my experience in organizing has been that before we endorse candidate, we get some kind of a trade-off.
You are listening to the Live from the Heartland show. We're going to hear a little bit of Bernice Reagon Johnson, and we'll be right back.
I will wake in the morning if you call, and I'll stand beside you long as I can. I will hold back the evening of your sun, but I won't crumble with you if you fall. I will shadow the heat of your day, and I'll drink from.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Live from the Heartland for the week of July 27th. I'm here with three pals, Thom Clark, Mike Klonsky, and Katy Hogan, and we are talking politics. Katy, you wanted to respond to some of the things Michael said in the earlier part of the discussion.
Mike Klonsky brought up the whole the war on Gaza that's incredibly getting even more brutal every day. And the problem with, how can we celebrate, if you will, or be happy about a candidate who comes from an administration that apparently was able to blind their eyes to the carnage that's going on in Gaza for the last 8 months, 9 months. And it's a good question, I think. And Bibi Netanyahu getting demonstrated against, there should have been thousands of people out there, but there were a few hundred, you said. And it's very difficult because they how many did they arrest, I
think about 400 people got arrested yesterday.
No kidding.
Wow.
Kidding.
Yeah, no shitting. I think, when we're doing this Operation Swing State, going up to other states to knock on doors, we can't, all of us, be apologists for, say, that particular policy. And,
right.
I try to steer clear of that because there are so many lies that people need to be disabused of. I had a young woman who claimed she was a constitutionalist, which is all she had to say. I knew she was a Trump supporter, but she's like a 20-something, young, lovely woman who claimed she was all about God. And then, you know, we listened for a long time, and she got to the place where she said, and all the violence from the migrants, I mean, just violence in the cities, at which point I stopped from losing it just long enough to say, well, now is where we tell you that we're from Chicago, and Chicago is a sanctuary city. And Chicago had, you know, thus, and so I told her the story of feeding and clothing and housing people that wasn't expected, and it wasn't in the budget, but somehow, you know, figured out how to do it. And isn't that what Jesus would want? So yeah, I mean, the dialectic of, you know, doing politics when you've got a ruling class it remains in place.
I just want to throw in there the headline today, I think I saw, or could have been yesterday, basically the world court's ruling that the occupation of Palestinian territory is unlawful is a sign of increasing Israel isolation. And
well, that's the point I wanted to pick up on, which is that when Bibi arrived, he should have been arrested at the airport. He's an international war criminal, or at least to be arrested so he can be indicted or whatever the international court can do. They don't have much enforcement power. But I think that one silver lining here, and we'll see what she does with it, Kamala was the first senior administration official to come out forcefully for a ceasefire. Now, I don't know how quickly she can shift the administration's current foreign policy, much less congressional appropriations to send more bombs over to devastate Gaza. But there's an opening there if she knows how to use it, I think, when the Gaza argument comes up.
Well, she's meeting. I think she's meeting with Netanyahu either today or tomorrow.
Which I was disappointed to hear. I know that
she and Biden are both meeting with him.
Most Democrats are staying away from his address, and she's not going to his address. She does not want that picture of sitting behind him while he addresses Congress, and that was a smart move.
Yeah, but she prefaced the move by saying this has nothing to do with. She said she had a previous engagement. She said this has nothing to do with supporting Israel. She says I'm a longtime supporter of Israel, and but I had a previous engagement. I was stunned to hear that. Both houses of Congress are meeting, and a foreign president is speaking, and you made another a lunch appointment or something like that. I thought she was just covering her rear end there. And but the point I was asking Katy about has to do with organizing. It seems to me that I was kind of stunned that, for example, all the unions jumped on Harris's bandwagon the second that it was decided that she would run, instead of at first trying to negotiate and get something in return for their endorsement. I mean, I thought that's the way organizing has always been done, going back to the Alinsky days.
I don't think there's time, Mike. I think that everyone's feeling the pressure. People knew this was coming. They probably knew she would be the candidate. And, you know, as much as we, a few years back, I never would have voted for her if unless we did something better around the Middle East. But given my old age and given the situation of the world, and given the draconian possibilities with the orange-haired dude, I kind of threw maybe some of my principles out. I don't know, but I'm just in and rooting for the Democrats, you know. And that's a shift. I sometimes think, am I a revisionist from the things I believe? Because I still have real serious questions. But I also, in these times, with the threat we have and the opportunity we now have, I'm just sort of all in.
Look, politics is not principle. So I don't think you've given up your principles. It's a dirty game, and it's a compromising game practically every step of the way. And, you know, we try to live with it. But I think that the on-the-ground work, such as Operation Swing State, is critical, because it's going to be those one-on-one conversations at the core of any good organizing campaign. that will move people. And I think our main goal is to get couch potatoes off their couch and vote, because that's, I think, the 1 or 2, 3% that's going to make a difference in this election.
Try not to call them couch potatoes, though.
Amongst friends.
Katie,
A
you've been up
reluctant
there.
voter who's thinking of sitting home formally because it was just 2 old men that we already know about. I think that dynamic has changed. And I think our organizing goal needs to be to get the unengaged voter to actually cast a ballot in November.
I don't think that those thousands and thousands of students who were encamping on their campuses or the professors who were arrested from Northwestern the other day, I don't think they're couch potatoes. I think that
that's not the voter I'm looking at. They're engaged.
I know, but
I think they'll come out and vote, Mike, to be honest with you. I think that you'll find that like the Arab community and up and around in Michigan, as well as Cook County, you know, not that it makes that much difference here, they're going to vote for Harris.
But I do think she has a challenge. Is 200 to 300,000 Arab voters in Michigan.
You do.
And that's where she's going to have to make some amends, I think. And I don't know how she does that with the sitting president continuing the foreign policy he's been.
I think how she does it, if she does it, is that there's got to be pressure from below and not just people saying, oh, I'm on board, or, you know, whatever. I don't have any principles anymore. Just whatever the Democrats say. I think we've got to use that movement to put pressure on and support the progressive wing within the Democratic Party who are fighting for certain principles, and force Harris to make concessions if she wants to win the election. Mm-hmm. Because if she doesn't, I don't take it for granted that she's going to beat Trump. She's still trailing Trump in the polls in the battleground states like Michigan. And so I think we've still got to have unity with her, but also a lot of struggle. And I don't see it. Well, I mean, I see it on the ground with the protests and what happened yesterday in Washington. But I'd like to hear more from folks like us about that.
You know, the thing is, she was on the ticket that thousands across the country, millions across the country voted in the primary for Biden. She was on that ticket. So she got those votes as well. There will be, and already has been, the argument foisted on us by the Repubs through Vance, I think, first, saying, and this is so fascinating, Trump is actually concerned about people being disenfranchised.
No, that was his joke of the week, as I read that. It was just bizarre. Really, just bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, it's
trying to put himself out there as a hillbilly intellectual when he wasn't even born in Appalachian. If you look at the Ohio map where he was born, he's totally outside Appalachia. I mean, it's.
So what Michael Klonsky is looking for is the tightrope walk, basically, between now and election time, how to apply the kind of pressure. The groups who can do that, you're right, would be unions, would be the Arab American community, wherever they are. And they absolutely should be applying pressure. It's not too late for the unions. They're saying them supporting the move this week, and we'll see this in a lot of ways, I'm sure, is simply people saying, thank God you made the move. You made the change. Now it's going to be a lot easier for us to work the way we have to work, which is, you're also absolutely right. It's not a shoo-in. For whatever reason, we've got a third of the American populace, registered American populace, who didn't vote last time around. You know, 77 million voted for Biden, 70 million voted for Trump. Now, I don't believe that January 6th didn't have an effect on those voters. I think some of those voters dropped off forever that day from Trump. But it's still not going to be easy, which is why we're doing what we're doing and can't stop. And
so, Katie, if people can't join you on one of the trips to Wisconsin or Michigan, what else can they do? We're going to stage a couple postcard parties, for one thing.
Yeah. Postcards have been proven to work. So a lot of postcard writing is happening right now. Phone banking is also going on. And, we're talking Operation Swing State, but there are dozens of similar groups all around the country doing exactly what we're doing. Really, thousands of people are activated right now going to Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania. We have, an easy lift because we don't have to travel far. But for both Michigan and Wisconsin, they are must-win states. And I think that when the rubber hits the road in terms of Kamala's campaign gaining strength, those kind of conversations, Klonsky, that we're both just talking about, holding her feet to the flame, are going to be happening, hopefully behind closed doors. I'm sick of the Democrats, airing their dirty laundry. But I was, like a lot of people, moved when Biden called Harris at the campaign headquarters on Sunday, and in a live phone call that they broadcast to the room. A lot of people were moved by that. He said, "Well, I'm keeping an eye on you, kid, and I love you." And the difference between that kind of love and the love of people wearing napkins on their ears at a convention, there's a big, vast difference. And American people, I hope, there's more of us than there are of them.
I've been thinking of wearing my own version of that would pride colors on it.
Oh, God.
Well, do you think, people bring up Michigan as a swing state? Michigan has, at the top leadership in all the government positions, it has Democrats. You have Whitmer, who says she is not going to take the vice presidential nomination if she's offered it. I'm not sure that's true. I'm going to switch it here and just ask the three of you what you think might be, or who you think might be Kamala Harris's pick for the vice presidential role.
Kentucky, or the governor who's retiring in one of the Carolinas.
Cooper in North Carolina or Bashir in Kentucky. That's what you think. Yep. How about you, Mike?
I don't know. Everybody I talk to now, all they want to talk about is who's going to be the vice presidential pick, as if that's at all consequential in this election. I doubt that it is. I mean, in my days, I haven't seen very many vice president candidates have any impact on the election, except maybe a negative one, like what's her name from Alaska had on McCain's campaign.
Yeah, and we can't forget Thomas Eagleton.
Thomas Eagleton, yes. And I was trying to remember who ran with Humphrey. Do any of you remember who ran with Humphrey in '68?
Yeah, the guy from
Maine. The guy from Maine.
Yes.
Muskie, right. But I don't think this country is.
I like this guy Kelly. I think this guy Kelly is pretty strong, but
that could also be good.
For some reason or other, I don't think he's going to get labor support. So we'll see.
Katy, what do you think?
Well, first of all, it'll never be two women, Michael. So forget Gretchen Whitmer, and I know she's smart enough to know that. We've got people who are going to come after the candidate, both for being a woman and being Black. So whoever is the vice president nominee is going to be white and probably male and probably not gay. There's just too many things to get over if they got.
Imagine we're still saying stuff like that in 2024.
I know.
Unfortunately, but that's what the former president has done to our body politic, I'm afraid. Well, it's a grievance. And can I say something or ask about polling? I talked before about the corruption of money in politics, and it's now Supreme Court authorized. But I think the second biggest challenge to our maintaining what's left of our democracy is the reliance on polling. I don't mind it as an internal mechanism to decide where to deploy forces and all that. but it has taken over the way the media, a plural noun, which has a lot of different faces to it, the media using polling as reporting when it's not. It's a moment in time crapshoot that then takes on a life of its own. And as some of us might know from on the ground work, there's so many people who ignore calls I get from pollsters on both sides of the aisle. And there are all sorts of growing issues around polling. And now you have Nate Silver, who's really become an opinion columnist and gets tripped up by his own polling numbers. Has had to change his averaging system and all that. I just think there's way too much attention paid to polls and not issues and what candidates have said.
I just don't believe them. I mean, the polls said that Hillary was going to beat what's his face.
Right.
I mean, polls have offered. Someone quoted a poll the other day in a thread I was on, and they said, Trump's up by 7 or 8 points in Michigan. And I immediately looked to 538 and a couple others, and polls mostly had him up by 1 to 2 points in Michigan.
I'm going back to the vice presidential possibility. And while I probably would agree with Mike Klonsky that it's not the biggest factor in the race, but I think, it could mean a percentage point or two in certain places, and that'll make a difference. And though both Katy and Thom know that I've long been pushing Bashir as someone to watch. And I was a little surprised how all of a sudden he really is being watched. But I've always liked him, for being from Kentucky. I think he would be a foil to the Vance candidacy easy. He's got the Christian credentials. He's in a red state. But I must say that I have never paid attention to Shapiro from Pennsylvania until the last few days. And in watching him speak and raising stuff, he's been pretty good. And Kelly, I haven't never paid that much attention to, although he would definitely... the fact that he's married to Gabby Gifford, who was severely wounded in a shooting, could play in the gun world. And he's a Second Amendment advocate, et cetera. And probably could deal with immigration around being on the Arizona border. Any response to any of that before I move to another question?
Well, the governor of Minnesota was on.
He's good too,
PBS
yes.
NewsHour, and he was very impressive.
Yeah, he was.
I think his problem might be that he's going to look older than the presidential candidate, and that may not work in his favor.
Yeah,
I'm hoping that at least they get somebody on the ticket who is critical of the genocide in Gaza.
That would be nice,
and that would be nice. Yeah. Well, I keep going back to that. That's important to me. Maybe the most important thing to me right now.
Who would fit that bill, Michael Klonsky? Do you know anybody in leadership who would meet that requirement?
Well, I defer to people like Bernie Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez and those people in the progressive wing of the party who have been very critical of the war and who don't want to see billions of dollars in our taxpayer money going to support a genocide. And so I'd like to see who they support, as in a vice presidential role. Yeah.
The other question that will play is whether or not we can afford to take a senator out of the Senate like Kelly, and rather than a governor. Governors don't make as big a difference when we're trying to win back the entire Congress, and people. That's part of the figuring in this is whether or not we can lose a Senate.
I think we got to remember. There's a lot of AIPAC money flowing into this campaign. When we talk about the ruling class money, and I know that they'd much rather see a guy like Shapiro, Pennsylvania governor, who's a pretty liberal guy, but there's a new expression now to define liberals on everything but Gaza, or everything but Israel. And Israel, whether we like it or not, is going to be a key issue here in this campaign, and we can see it today.
Yeah,
with the Congress meeting. So
I think it's a very
kind of stuck on that. Yeah.
But notwithstanding what I said earlier about polling, Gaza ranks low on voters' list of concerns. It's young people.
It ranks high on my list.
Don't turn out in their numbers to vote. I have been vigorous in prosecuting the case against the war in Gaza, but most Americans aren't voting on that issue. They're voting pocketbook. They're voting sense of security domestically. I forget what the third issue is.
Age will be a good one too. Look, I'm going to bust in here again. And we've got 2 minutes left. So I want to ask each of you your thoughts on the Democratic Convention. It played a big part in 68. It played a big part in 96. I'm not sure what happened then, but these are ones that I remember. And I've done 2 interviews now with USA Today and NPR around the convention. I'm not sure if any of it will apply now that there's a new candidate. We didn't see a lot of demonstrations in Milwaukee. There's been a lot of, conversation, disagreement, arguing between the city and groups that want to demonstrate. Thom, what do you think about the convention? And then I'll go to Katy and I'll go to Mike.
Well, as you know, I thought the mayor should have declared a First Amendment parade for all 4 days of the convention and let anyone who wants to march do so and have a speaker's platform where they can, talk all they want. I appreciate there may be security concerns, but putting that aside, particularly given the recent alleged assassination event, I think that it'll be an energizing party, I hope, so that the activists really are ready to turn out and get those grassroots voters to vote. I do think there will be demonstrations around Gaza. I have no question about that.
Katy, been inside at 2 of them.
Yeah, that's why I don't give them a whole lot of play. The decisions are usually made before the convention. There's, behind the scenes stuff. The Rules Committee is meeting today to make it all okay that this happens, what just happened in the Democratic Party. I'm just hoping the police behave themselves around demonstrators, because there will definitely be demonstrations, like Thom just said, and that it, the sooner it's over, the better. I've always thought that the spectacles that happen every 4 years between the Olympics and the politics is kind of the same thing.
Okay, that's good. Mike, you got 30 seconds.
Okay, 30 seconds not enough for me. I'm about to write something at substack.com. People can read my blog there. I'm writing about the incredible parallels between the 68 convention and today. And check that out.
Call me later if you want to interview me. Okay, we're running out of time. And I want everyone to remember, there is Operation Swing State. You can get a hold of Katy. You can get a hold of Jan Schakowsky's office, etc. There's a lot of work to do. I want to thank the 3 of you, Thom Clark, Mike Klonsky, Katy Hogan, for coming on live from the Heartland. I want to thank our engineer, Hal James, our other producer, Lynn Orman. And I'm going to keep telling you guys, do good in the world, because the world needs all the good that you do, that I do, that Thom does, that Katy does, that Mike does, that Hal does. Together, we are going to make a difference, and we're going to win this election. Okay, next week, we'll
power to the people.
Power to the people. Right on.
Right on. Thanks a lot, you guys. We want to thank you for watching the Live from the Heartland show. New episodes air every Friday beginning at 9 a.m. Central Time. Episodes air each following Thursday on CAN TV, 9 p.m. in Sweet Home Chicago on Channel 21, or streaming everywhere else at cantv.org. Audio episodes go live on WLUW each Saturday, 9 a.m. on the left end of your dial at 88.7 FM, or streaming everywhere worldwide at WLUW.org. They're available on Apple and Spotify podcasts by looking up Live from the Heartland on either platform, and are also broadcast on Lumpin' Radio each Friday at 9 a.m. on 105.5 FM and streaming at lumpinradio.com. I'm Michael James, and I'm glad to have been your host. Until next time, remember, do good in the world because the world needs all the good that you do, that I do, that we do together. All power to the people. Over and out.
Come to limb. Are you doing the best you can? Tell me, are you doing